Welcome to Unfinished Conversations, where turning silence into strength happens one voice at a time. Here is your host, Rebecca Lombardo.
Hey everybody, this is Rebecca Lombardo, and you are joining us on Unfinished Conversations with our good friend Alex Blair, and we are very excited. He's calling us from overseas, so this is an interesting conversation for us, and we're really looking forward to it. So good afternoon, Alex.
Good afternoon, Rebecca. Lovely to be here. Hello from sunny Spain, and thanks for having me. I'm very pleased to be here.
Absolutely. That's what I thought you were in. You had said you're in Madrid. That was what I.
Yeah, well, I'm not in Madrid. I'm actually far down in the south in Andalusia,
Mm.
but just in terms of time zone, it's that's
Oh,
what it will
okay.
come up as normally Madrid.
Okay.
Yeah,
So what
surrounded
what
by
brought you there?
65 million olive trees.
Oh, wow. That must be beautiful. What brought you there?
Um, Well, it was a happenstance, really. Almost by accident, we ended up moving here.
Oh.
We came on holiday a few times and fell in love with the area in general. And then a friend of ours bought a house and they told us what they'd paid for it. And suddenly we were like, oh, maybe we could do that.
Yeah.
So we came over then with a different mindset of house hunting. And at that stage, it was just going to be a holiday home.
Hmm.
But then COVID happened, and we had just got to Spain when most of Europe went into lockdown.
Oh, wow.
So we decided, because of my chronic chest, decided that we'd be better off staying where we were because it's much safer than living in London for sure.
Hmm.
And um, and then Brexit happened as well.
Oh, yeah.
Shortly after that, which is when the UK left the EU as a political identity.
Hmm.
Uh, and we realized that if we didn't do it then, we would never be able to afford to do it. So it
Yeah.
kind of forced our hands, really. And,
Hmm.
we're very happily so. It was a happy
Right. I was
accident.
going to say,
But
you look like you're happy with the decision.
yes, absolutely. Sometimes these things happen for a reason, and we didn't appreciate it at the time. But
Right.
6 years down the line, I'm very grateful it happened the way it did.
Well, great. That's wonderful. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. From from being a food lover, you are an award-winning marmalade maker, which is fascinating to me,
Yep.
and to writing your book. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay. So I grew up in the UK, lived in London pretty much all my life. I had a mother that loved to cook and a father that quite enjoyed cooking, but was never really around very much. He was always at work, did a lot of shift work. So I really learnt to cook at my mother's side in the kitchen.
Mm.
Learned a fair bit from my grandmother as well.
Hmm.
So she was from Venice. Um, so we grew up um, making the best out of not a lot,
Yeah.
and to be able to do that in London was quite remarkable,
Hmm.
and so began a lifelong love of food, really, both eating obviously, and cooking it. And it's really my parents that gave me the notion that food is a love language, and it's about bringing people around a table and sharing what you have. Some days it's a lot, some days it's not a lot,
Hmm.
but that act of community is very
Right.
important. Um,
Absolutely.
so when I was in London, I did used to do supper clubs and house concerts, and I
Oh,
just
wow.
loved doing things that brought people together
Hmm.
around food and music. When I say house concerts, I'm not a musician. So someone else would come in and do the music bit, and then I'd basically provide a meal as part of that experience for people. I did it for a career. I worked in bars and restaurants and coffee shops for nearly 20 years. Then I changed careers. I burnt out myself. It's
Yeah.
it's very long hours and it's
Hmm.
hard job. And to survive nearly 20 years was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went into something that I thought would be low stress. Turned out not to be, but I still did that for another 15 years.
Oh, wow.
So, um, and then that's kind of the point at which we moved here to Spain. And that was the point in which it was like, okay, I want to do stuff around food again.
Hmm.
But for it not to be a job.
Right,
Because
right.
as soon as you're doing something for money and you're trying to make a living from it, obviously it becomes something very, very different indeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I do it mainly because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in terms of the marmalade, actually, ironically, although I live not far from Seville, which is where the oranges we make marmalade come from, um, I actually started that when I was in London. Again, that's something my mother taught me, was to make marmalade.
Mm.
And she always would make marmalade and end up with jars and jars and jars of it and give it away to her friends and family and so on.
Right.
And again, so that was something I learned from hers. And there's an annual World Marmalade Awards that's held in the UK.
Wow, isn't that
Um,
something?
and yeah, and I entered. I thought, well, nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very fortunate to get 2 silver awards.
Wow.
So that was
That's
like, oh,
great.
okay. So that was very reassuring for my
Oh, yeah,
self-esteem for sure.
definitely. Are you still working with that now?
No, unfortunately, my health has made that a lot more difficult more
Mm.
recently. So the
Yeah,
first couple of years I was here, I was doing that. Um, but stirring giant pots of melting sugar when it's
not so good.
45
Yeah.
degrees centigrade in the shade is
Yeah.
not great. And I kind of reached the point whereby, I mean, I still make the occasional jar. I make it for myself for sure, and I make a little bit for friends and family. But yeah, I don't have a market stall or anything like that
Mm-hmm.
anymore. That's for the time being, that's beyond what I'm reasonably capable of doing.
Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about your health and um what's been going on with you. How's that been affecting you?
Excuse me. Um, so, well, I mean, the chronic condition that I had when I came here already was I had childhood asthma, and that never went away. I kind of grew out of it a bit in my 20s, as lots of people do, and then it kind of came back a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of turned into COPD. So I
Oh.
have COPD and asthma
Mm-hmm.
diagnosis. And that can be triggered by all sorts of things.
Yeah.
As I said earlier, I'm surrounded by 65 million olive trees, and I grew out of my hay fever, but it turns out I'm very allergic to olive pollen.
Oh no.
So, so in one respect, I probably picked one of the worst places in the world I could have moved to. But you adapt and overcome.
Right.
We have I wear masks sometimes if I need to go out and it's especially bad, and we have aircon in the house which filters the air, and HEPA filter in the bedroom, and so we've made the adjustments we can make. Um, and then I also have a condition with my back which is annoyingly as yet undiagnosed. Um, that wasn't something I had whilst I was in the UK. That's something that's new here.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to navigate a medical system that not only am I not familiar with, but it's also in a different language.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, they're taking very good care of me.
Oh, well, that's
Um,
good.
but yeah, I mean, the system here is great. We pay like a fixed monthly fee to be enrolled in the National Health Service,
Oh, okay.
which compared to private medical is relatively cheap. Um, yeah, so I mean, it's like, I don't pay for tests or anything like that. That's all included. So that's great. Like, as I say, unfortunately, I'm still waiting for a diagnosis.
Yeah,
Because you
that's the
kind of
hard
want
part.
that. It's like, I just want to know if it's something you can make go away,
Right.
or if it's something that is like, it's going to stay the same forever, or, worst case is something that's degenerative. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, Yeah, so that gives me the back pain, which I have all the time.
Yeah.
And then obviously, as your listeners with chronic illnesses will know, when you're in pain constantly, it leads to chronic fatigue,
Yeah.
and it's very difficult to explain to people that won't understand. I know lots of your listeners will, but it's a kind of exhaustion that is not a siesta doesn't cure it.
Yeah,
And I can go to
exactly.
bed for 12 hours sleep,
Hmm.
and actually sometimes have a pretty good night's sleep, and I'll wake up and I'm still
You're
exhausted.
so
It's like it
exhausted.
just
Yeah.
never goes away. It's very difficult to
Yeah.
describe to people that haven't experienced it.
I just had in the last year, I had three surgeries in a year, and the last two I had were both of my knees being replaced.
Okay.
And they were both bone on bone, and the pain was for, 5, 6 years. I think I took it and just dealt with it until
Yeah.
I finally got to a low enough weight so that they would do the knee surgery.
Right.
So I can understand some of where you're coming from.
Yeah. I mean, it's slightly different for everybody,
Hmm.
obviously, but I can't imagine what having pain in both knees would be like. I mean, there are
Yeah.
things I can do to make the pain in my back less.
Hmm.
Um, and the medication obviously helps. I'm very lucky that I've got some fairly decent medication, I think.
Yeah.
But as you know, it's like even with the medication, it doesn't make the pain go away. It just
Mm.
brings it down to a maybe bearable level,
Right.
and that becomes your new normal, doesn't it? It's,
Well, then
what's normal for you is not necessarily normal for everyone else.
you've got doctors here that won't give out medications. They tell you to take
Right.
Tylenol, and Tylenol's not going to do anything for anybody in that state.
No, no, yeah. So yeah, paracetamol is not going to help.
Yeah.
Um, but no, I consider myself to be very fortunate anyway. It's that I'm well looked after, as I say.
Well, you look good.
Thank you.
I couldn't look at you and think, oh, that man looks sickly or anything like that. You
Yeah,
look like you have, you're enjoying your life and you're doing well. And
and for the most part, I feel very well. Before I moved here, my mental health was not great. Um, and then moving here, it kind of felt like legitimately running away from everything.
hmm.
And that was great, and that's been great for my mental health.
No, that's good.
um and for the most part I'm happy, and I'm other than the aforementioned ailments,
Hmm.
I'm actually pretty healthy, I think.
Good. That's good to know.
So
Do
yeah.
you still see anyone for mental health related things, or have you kind of just
No,
passed that?
yeah, I'm fortunate enough that at the moment that's not something that I need. I've been medicated several times. Again, I've not needed that whilst I've been here.
Well, that's
So it's
great.
yeah, it's a very different way of life, and I'm very fortunate. I don't take it for granted at all.
Hmm.
Very often, as we're coming home from somewhere, and I'll pinch my husband on the arm and say, "Can you believe we live here? Look how beautiful it is." We're blessed. We really are.
Yeah, that's sweet. That's very sweet. So, the title of your book is one that a lot of people can relate to. Was there a specific moment where you realized this book just needed to exist?
Yeah, I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could say there's a specific moment. I mean, I started writing the book about 18 months, maybe more like 2 years ago now. Um, and it was the fatigue was starting to get to me, the pain was starting to get to me, and as someone that loves to cook,
Hmm.
I was finding it really difficult, um, both physically, to be able to stand at the counter and do it.
Hmm.
Um, so I was trying to find ways of making adjustments in that sense. Um, and then with the medication, you get brain fog,
Yeah.
and it's like, so it gets to 7 o'clock in the evening, and I talk about this in the book, and I talk about it a lot online. It's like just that, It's 7 o'clock in the evening and you know you're hungry and you need to eat and someone else is relying on you to feed them.
Yeah.
And you open the fridge door and maybe it's dark and you're illuminated just from the light of the fridge and your brain is just blank. It's like, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, I've been there, I've lived that, and I know I'm by no means unique in that. And people experience that for lots of reasons: chronic illness, pain, fatigue. Um, and then when the book was nearly finished, I hadn't done my final draft yet. I sadly lost a friend and my father on the same weekend. So I was plunged into, in terms of my father, it was unexpected.
Yeah.
So I was plunged into grief out of nowhere. And so, of course, everything stops. And then that becomes your focus for a little while. And as time went on, and you know, the grief doesn't go away, but you make room for more stuff in your head other than just the grief. That's when I kind of realized that actually the book is important for people other than, because up to that point I just focused on chronic fatigue, chronic pain, chronic illnesses. And suddenly it's like, do you know what? This isn't just about those. There are people that just reach that level of physical exhaustion for all sorts of reasons. Grief being one of them, because I definitely experienced that, as I'm sure most people do. It knocks you for six. And so that was very hard. So I could relate immediately to the book and how I was writing it. And then when you start talking to other people, it's like, oh, well, you know, it's like, my son's got ADHD and he would appreciate something like that. But it's got to be laid out in a particular way and it's to be very clearly written. And so actually kind of developed and became something that wasn't just about chronic pain, but it's about just that being exhausted, that fatigue that that people experience, as I said, for all sorts of reasons. And so then that informed my edit from that point onwards. And it's like, okay, I need to think about how can I, on a very practical level, I wanted to build in kindness and empathy from the beginning, because lots of people that are in that situation will be on their own.
Right.
And in the world of food and cooking, we place as a society a lot of guilt on people if they are not serving up, you know, a plate full of vegetables and you know, it's something fancy, and you know, they picked a cookbook off the shelf with beautiful photos in it, and it's like, for lots of people, for big chunks of their life, that's just not realistic. Now I love that. I collect cookbooks. I've got 500 and most of them have got big glossy pictures in, but when you're in that place, you don't want aspirational cooking. It's like, it's almost like it's an emergency, stop. It's like, no, now the priority is not to make something that looks beautiful, not even necessarily to be a perfectly balanced plate of food, but you need to nourish yourself and you need to feed yourself. That's the priority.
Right.
Both for your own sanity and also if other people are depending on you, which unfortunately is very often the case, to look after them as well, you know. So you know, parents of young children, they might have all those things that I just described that I went through, but then at the same time, imagine all that and you've got a toddler as well, and it's like, I just can't imagine how difficult that must be. And then the guilt that society would place on that mother, for it's like, well, she hasn't cooked from scratch this evening and there's not 3 vegetables on the plate, and it's like, do you know what, sometimes the priority is just to get fed,
Right.
you know.
Exactly.
So the book was written very much from that mindset, from the very beginning, and I built it right back in. There's a section at the front that says, you know, before you do anything else, read this. and it explains that, look, the mission is to feed yourself. This is an emergency. You need to feed yourself first and foremost,
Hmm.
because you can't do anything else unless you're fueled. Tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow maybe you'll feel better and you want to cook something beautiful from scratch. Um, but today, just eat something. So there's, in the most literal sense, there's a permission slip in here that says you don't need to feel guilty. You
Yeah.
know, your priority today is feed yourself. You've picked up the book and you're thinking about food. You're
Yep.
doing better than you think you are.
Right. You're
You
taking the
know,
steps.
start there.
Hmm.
You know, um, yeah. So that kind of that whole philosophy kind of just hit me, and it's like, because I was very conscious of the difficulty that some people have at various times in their life, and the guilt that, you know, TV shares, food competitions on telly, glossy
Hmm.
cookbooks, glossy magazines,
I was
beautiful
going to ask you
Pinterest
about that
pages.
actually.
You know, it makes it very difficult.
Hmm.
One of the things that people often notice first is that there are no pictures in the book, and that's very deliberate.
Hmm.
And I explain why in the book. I mean, I'll say now anyway, but it's because, like I said, it's not aspirational cooking.
Hmm.
I don't want that mother that's going through grief, difficulty at work, long shifts, and coming home and trying to feed a toddler to
Hmm.
then have a picture and say, well, why doesn't my plate look like it does in the book?
Right.
You know, because you haven't got a food stylist and a food stylist and a food technicians, and you
It's
know, you
not
don't
made
have
of
24
plaster.
different types of dinner plates, and you know,
Hmm.
and it's like, so it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what it looks like. If it tastes good and you can eat it, then that's it. Mission
Yeah.
achieved.
I just wonder, I have this friend who suffers pretty severely from depression and not so much anxiety, but pretty bad depression. And one of her main things that she mentions is that she doesn't like to cook or food prep or shop or any of that. And I just wonder if your book would be something that I could pick up for her and say, here, why don't you give this a shot and see if it's, not as much pressure for you.
Yeah. So I mean, the book is kind of assumes really very little prior knowledge. So it doesn't assume that anybody's been to culinary school or,
Hmm.
you know, even did home economics at school. It's, you know, it's really based quite you know, with low assumption to start with.
Hmm.
Um, and then I even start from the very beginning about, if you know that there are going to be days when you just don't have the energy to cook. I mean, this is a cookbook that's got recipes that you don't need to cook it. There are no cook recipes in it. They're literally just opening a few cans and assembling them on a plate. You know, maybe some cheese out the fridge, or, you know, so that there are options there for people that just don't want to cook today at all.
Hmm.
But to do that kind of assumes you have a level of food in your pantry, in your store cupboard, or in your fridge or freezer.
Right.
So I start from the very beginning of, okay, so if I was starting from scratch, what are the 10 items I would always aim to have in my pantry?
Hmm.
You know,
That's helpful.
and yeah, you know, and then there are other things like, okay, so I call them the flavor bombs. It's like, so then what are the things that you can add to those basics that then make them taste great? So a jar of curry paste, a jar of pesto, you know, nothing very expensive, nothing very fancy.
Hmm.
No one has to go out and buy everything all at the same time. So you buy a jar of curry paste, what you don't use goes in the fridge, and that'll be fine for a while. So
Hmm.
um, really, I wanted people to be able to start with, okay, I don't want to cook. I want to be able to go to the pantry, and Alex says to get that can and that can and some of that, and that's going to taste good, you know. So ideally, your pantry should always have meals in it,
Right.
you know, before you even start to get to the cooking stage, because sometimes that's just not feasible.
Hmm. Yeah, that's definitely something that my husband and I need to learn. We buy more, by the minute type stuff and we
Yeah.
don't think ahead as often as we probably should.
I mean, it's not even a case of planning. I mean, it's not, you don't need to menu plan or batch cook. If you can and you've got the energy to do that, that's great. Of course it is. And there are some batch cook recipes in the book for the days when you feel great and you've got the energy and you've got the motivation to do it. Um, there are some recipes in there that you can feed yourself for tonight, put the resting portions in the fridge or the freezer, and then
Hmm.
actually then 2 days later, and you're like, no, now I've got zero energy. All you got to do is bung something in the microwave, or
Yeah.
reheat it in a pan on the hob. And so it's giving people those options, I think, that, when you're not in that state, you take for granted.
Yeah. And you talk about spoon theory. So for our listeners who might not be familiar with that, can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, of course. Um, so I can't remember the lady's name. I have got it in the book, so I have credited her with it. There was a lady that was trying. She was living with lupus and the side effects of lupus, that chronic fatigue being one of them. And she was trying to explain to a friend over a lunch table how that fatigue looked for her. And so she described it as being this spoon theory that when you wake up in the morning, um, a normal person might have, say, a bundle of 10 spoons. And then every transaction you do during the day is going to have a cost. So
Hmm.
physically getting out of bed, if you're chronically fatigued, that might cost you one spoon,
Right.
you know. Um, to then make it from sitting on the end of the bed to the bathroom and being able to shower and take care of yourself, that might be another two spoons. So if you've woken up and you've got 10 spoons, it's like, well, that's fine. You've got the energy to do that. But
Hmm.
what about the days that you wake up and you've got no spoons or you've got two spoons?
Yeah.
So then you have to ration, you know, we talk about having to ration our energy, because if you know you're only going to be able to achieve so much today, what are those priorities?
Right.
Um, you know, and some days, you know, getting up and getting washed is not the priority. You know, some days something else is the priority. The only thing I would say should always be a priority, other than any medical assistance, obviously you need, but is to feed yourself. Because if
Mm.
you're not fueled, if you haven't fueled your body, then you can't do anything.
And it's a hard
And
thing to learn. It's to
yeah,
teach yourself that you don't have to reward yourself with food, that there's other things, and that food is there because you need the basic intake, and so you can survive. It doesn't
yeah.
have to be, I did good at work today, I'm going to eat a whole pizza.
I mean, don't get, I mean, I love cooking and I love that aspirational, glossy photo,
Hmm.
and I love to cook sort of fancy multi-course gourmet dinners. Um, but that's not possible every day for me, who loves to do it and has been trained to do it. And it's not feasible every day for lots of other people for lots of other reasons. So it's, and that thing about learning to ration your energy is quite a hard lesson to learn.
Hmm.
And I certainly don't have that sorted yet. I mean, a couple of weeks back, um, we invited two friends over for Sunday lunch. Now, I've catered weddings for 200 people.
Hmm.
In my home here, I've fed 30 people plus. So to have an extra two people, so me, my husband, and two friends at a table on a Sunday, should have been very easy indeed.
Hmm.
And I was exhausted, and it
Yeah.
took me a week to recover, and it's like, oh, okay. So
Hmm.
that was, I borrowed the energy in
Right.
advance for the whole week to
Hmm.
to cook an extra two meals, which is ludicrous. And it's like, that was a hard lesson because I love to feed people,
Hmm.
so that was quite a hard lesson to learn. and I will make the same mistake again. I don't doubt it, because I'll in a few months' time I'll have forgotten how difficult it was, and I'll think, oh, I feel okay today, and I'll do it again, and then and then I'll suffer for it. But I think lots of your listeners will be familiar with that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, so the spoon theory, where that relates to the book, is assuming that feeding yourself has to be one of the priorities, which I would say that it has to be.
Hmm.
You need to decide how much energy, attention, and time you can spend on that. So there are no cook recipes where it's literally, you might open a can of chickpeas and a can of or a jar of pesto and a slice of bread, and mash the chickpeas and the pesto on the slice of toast, and that's it. Delicious, quick, you're nourished for that day,
Hmm.
or that meal at least. Um, and then, but some days you want more and you're able to do more. So the recipes are all ranked by a spoon rating. So basically between 0, uh, which is the no cooking, and then between 1 and 4. So, most of the time I would say I probably hover around 2 or 3. But then I'll have a day when it's like, okay, I can afford to spend 4 spoons of my energy, time,
Yeah.
and attention today.
Okay.
Um, so then those are the days I'll think, right, well, rather than just opening a can of soup, I'm going to make a pot of soup, and then I can freeze some of that. And then actually another day when I don't have any energy,
Right.
I've already used, I've already put that in the bank, as it were.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's just to give people those options and those ideas really of how they can start to do that. And the book is different in that it aims to meet you where you are,
Yeah.
whereas most cookbooks assume that you're already at a certain level.
Hmm.
And it's not just the energy, it's the time and attention as well, because those can be exhausting for people.
Right.
Um, so and the other thing I talk about in the book is to those shortcuts that we see and some people judge, like the bag of frozen chopped onions. People are very judgmental about it sometimes. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so lazy. It's like all you've got to do is chop an onion. Well, they don't understand. And so that bag of frozen chopped onions is not for them,
Hmm.
but it might be for you. It
Right.
might be for me. And I might not need it every day. There might be the days it's like, fine, I can chop an onion, I can cut my veggies and peel them. But there are other days it's like, actually, you know what? I'm going to go to the freezer and get a bag of vegetables
Hmm.
or a bag of something that's ready made or some chopped onions, some peeled potatoes, because that is saving you some of that energy that you
Right.
can then use for something else.
Yeah. And anybody knows with chronic illness that, energy is, you know, is top priority.
Yeah.
And when you don't have it, like you were saying earlier, you feel it to the bone. It's just there's just no way around it. And I've
No.
gone through that a lot. And so I really understand. I want my husband and I to actually go through all of the recipes in your book, because I really think that it could help us out a lot, of out of the what do you want for dinner? I don't know. What do you want for dinner? What do you feel like? I don't know. What do you feel like? I think if we could go into something smart and
Yeah.
useful, maybe we could change our habits a little bit.
Well, and as you say, the energy is a finite resource. We only have so much of it.
Hmm.
And, people that aren't living with those limitations, you know, they're the people that maybe they can have a siesta in the afternoon or wake up refreshed and they've restored their spoons
Right.
for the day. But for those of us that isn't going to happen, it's like, then, yeah, that's where you're having to ration your resources.
Right.
Um, and if I can give someone permission to don't worry about what anyone else says. If you want to use the bag of frozen chopped onions, if you want to buy the bag, the pack in the grocery store that's got a melon that's already been sliced and peeled, because that's going to enable you to eat that piece of melon that
Hmm.
otherwise you wouldn't, then do it. That's what it's
Yeah.
for. They're accessible foods. It's
Hmm.
making it accessible for people. And that's an argument I have with people every day online.
Right.
People are like, oh, some people are so lazy. And it's like, I really hate the word lazy,
Yeah.
um, because some people are lazy. That word does not appear in the book once.
Yeah.
Again, as a very, because it's like, oh, sometimes it's like, oh, well, I could call this like the lazy bolognese sauce. And it's like, no, because it's not about being lazy. It's about conserving energy, which is
Mm-hmm.
not the same thing at all.
That's right.
Um, so yeah. And the book is doing well. I think people are understanding where it's the points I'm trying to make in it. I think it's hitting home for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, definitely. The first time that I saw the title, and I don't know, have we even mentioned the title? The title is Too Tired to Cook.
Yep.
The and we didn't even get a chance to mention it. We just jumped in and started talking about it like everybody knew. But yeah, it as soon as I read the title of that, I thought, oh, that's gonna be good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I've had some very good feedback already. So I'm very pleased. I'm very proud of it.
Good,
It's a book I'm
good.
very proud of. Um, I just want for as many people to see it, uh, partly for selfish reasons, obviously, but also for people's own benefit, because I think a lot of people will benefit from seeing something like this.
Yeah, I think so
Um,
too. I
yeah.
have a mental health group on Facebook. We've got 7,000 members. And the lady that I was telling you about that I wanted to show your book to is in
Mhm.
that group. And I'm thinking about maybe just putting a whole blurb together about it for them because I think this would really, really help a lot of these people that
Yeah.
are dealing with depression and everything. That would really help. I think it's going to make a big impact once people get the idea of exactly what it is that you've done and created. I think it's just going to be just go for forever.
It keeps finding new audiences. I mean, I've had people that have bought the book for themselves, and then they've bought it for their teenage children as
Mm-hmm.
almost like a leaving home, going to college.
Right.
Here's like a starter guide to cooking because it tells you how to set up the pantry, the sort of things you should always have in your fridge, and arrange recipes from really simple. There's date night recipes for the days when you want to be a little bit fancy.
Hmm.
So there's kind of a bit of everything in there. And because it doesn't start with an assumption that you're already at a certain level.
Yeah.
Um, I've tried to make it as clear as possible. Um, yeah, so it's finding new audiences all the time, which is nice. I like that.
Yeah. So I have a final question that is going to be sort of something that I ask all of my guests. And it's related to the name of my podcast, Unfinished Conversations. And so the question is, what's a story that you really haven't ever um, told, but maybe now it's time to finish the conversation?
Oh my goodness. Um, I don't know really. I think my thought immediately goes to my father,
Hmm.
who, as I said, I lost last year.
Hmm.
It was very sudden, very unexpected. He was on holiday with his wife, and so it was just so completely out of the blue.
Hmm.
Whereas when my mother died, she had been ill for a long time. So there were lots of conversations that we were able to have
Right,
uh,
right.
because, in a way, and it sounds horrible, the fact that it was expected and that she had time meant that we were blessed with the opportunity to have some discussions that
Hmm.
actually we wouldn't necessarily have had.
Right.
And mine and my dad's relationship was very good, I would say. Wasn't always very good. Um, but as he got older, he became more open in his affection and his choice of words. Um, and I think if I'm not sure that it's an unfinished, well, I don't know, maybe it is. I think because I alluded to it earlier that we were brought up in London and my parents didn't have a lot.
Hmm.
Um, and I know my dad feels guilty for that,
Yeah.
felt guilty. Um, and really, it would just be to say, I did get a chance to say it to him, but I would reiterate, is that no, we had an amazing childhood. We never once felt like we did without anything.
Hmm.
Um, and we you only realize when you're older the things that you went without.
Right.
But as a child we were very protected from that. Not in a, sort of we weren't mollycoddled at all. Um, but we were never made to feel less than or that we should think less than.
Hmm.
We were all very well raised and we were all loved. Um, that would be the unfinished comment. I would just like to reiterate to
Hmm.
him to know that, yeah, he was a good dad and we loved him.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's really great.
Yeah, sorry.
No problem. I lost my dad. I lost my mom first in 2008, and I cared for her. She had lung cancer and I cared for her through all of it. And then my father had so many different things happening, and I wasn't at the house as often. Because my sister and my niece lived with him and were taking care of him. Um, and I didn't have a way to get over there. So, uh, anything that happened to him was a shock to me. I was a shock to my system. Like, wait a minute, Superman is, has met his kryptonite, and he's not doing so hot. Because that's how I thought of him. He
Yeah,
just was, just the most amazing person. My husband was terrified to ask him for his permission to marry me. And my dad loved my husband, just absolutely adored him. So, um, but yeah, I get where you're coming from. With my dad, he had a certain type of a tube in his throat. He wasn't completely intubated, but he had this one tube, but he couldn't talk, and he was very distressed in
yeah,
trying to talk. And that's my unfinished conversation right there
yeah,
that I couldn't have with him. I had no idea what was going on with him and no idea that he was going to leave us that fast. But yeah, the parent thing is hard. 'Cause a lot of people will say, "Well, who do you want, to come back for, you could have one less dinner with them or something like that." And this might be really bad of me, but I always think, well, I would say my parents, except then they would leave again.
yeah,
And I don't want to go through that another time. you
yeah.
know?
Of course, that'd be possibly difficult.
Hmm.
Um, yeah,
All right, so we've got about 10 more minutes. So let's I've got so many questions.
far
But
away.
um but how about this one? This
Excuse me.
one's really
Hmm.
important. What do people misunderstand about fatigue and limited energy?
Oh, again, I kind of hinted at. Well, I didn't hint it. I said it earlier. Uh, a nap is not going to cure it.
Hmm.
Um, I get it all the time. It's like when people say, "Oh, you look really tired," and it's like, "I'm really tired. I'm exhausted.
Hmm.
Why don't you go and have a nap?" And it's
Yeah.
like a nap is not going to make the slightest bit of difference. It's not going to affect my energy levels for today.
Mhm.
So I think that because it's a repeat conversation is frustrating sometimes because it's like people don't get it.
And I think
Um,
what you said too about the lazy thing comes
yeah,
into that too.
yeah, and because you almost kind of, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but there's a guilt attached to not doing very much.
Yes, exactly.
Um, and I feel a level of guilt that I don't have my friends over for dinner all the time anymore, and I don't host these big parties where I'm cooking for 30 people, and because people got used to me doing that, and people
Hmm.
loved me doing that, and I love doing it.
Hmm.
um and I kind of feel guilty that I don't do it, but I just know that certainly for the time being it's just not an option. um there's not, if two people took me a week to recoup the energy from, then it's like trying to do a big party would be yeah, wouldn't wouldn't make sense energy wise.
Yeah, for sure. How are you at delegating?
Well, I'm a very considerate husband, so I'm very lucky.
That's good.
His forte is not in the kitchen, however.
Yeah, yeah.
uh, and also as someone that loves to cook, and loves to have other people around, I don't like cooking with other people though.
Oh, no kidding. That's
I'm
interesting.
the kitchen is my kitchen, it's like
Right.
my domain, and I
You know
don't I
where
don't play
everything
well
is,
nice with
and
others.
yeah. Yeah, I get that. I have certain spots in my house that are like that too for me, so
Yeah,
I get that. Well, it's been so great talking to you. You really are a really special person. I'm glad to have met you. Um,
likewise.
and I hope we can keep in touch. I want to know, how things are going for you, and you know how, if you start to feel better, and what it is that makes it so you do feel better, and just
Yeah.
kind of follow your story is what I would love to do. So we're on threads together, right? So
Yes,
we can
absolutely.
keep in touch that way.
Yeah, so I'm reasonably active on there. I'm trying to rebuild a community that is based around chronic illness, chronic fatigue, um, and so yeah, so we'll definitely be in that space together for sure.
I know there's a lot of people on threads that are dealing with that. I see it
Yeah,
day after day after day. So that's a good audience for you.
yeah, it's a big audience, and there's lots of people that need some help and advice, and um, I can't do very much about anything other than helping them feed themselves. That's the bit I can do. So I
Well,
shall I
that's
shall
important.
continue to do that.
That's definitely an important bit that you do. So thank you so much for coming on, Alex. Really, it was really great talking to you.
Thank you. It's gone quick. I can't believe that's nearly an hour gone already.
Yep, I know.
But it's good. It means we've had a nice conversation. I've enjoyed it.
Oh, great. That's wonderful. Well, you have
And I
a,
look forward to listening to some of your other guests.
oh yeah, it's going to be interesting. I've got quite the mix of people that
Yeah,
are responding. So,
good.
but all right. So great. You have a good rest of your weekend,
Thank you very
and
much. You too.
you will talk soon.
Yeah, will do. Stay
All
well.
right. All right. You
Take care.
too. Thanks. Bye bye.
Bye.
This has been Unfinished Conversations. Thanks for tuning in. Catch us next Friday for a new episode.